Broadcast Center. Saul Kaplan in the house.
He is.
Saul Kaplan, join us. How the heck are you?
How are you?
Good. So it's a crazy Monday. Obviously, the whole country is in some level of sorrow from the news this morning. I woke up about 3:45, and it literally had just kind of hit CNN. And the first report was 2 dead and 20 wounded. And before I came on here an hour and a half ago, it was up to more than 50 dead and pushing towards 600 hospitalized.
I went to bed last night. I go to bed early, and I'm up pretty early as well. When I went to bed, I was excited for the week, ready to go, all kinds of exciting things going on. And then it's like a punch in the gut this morning.
Brutal.
When I turn on the morning news, so I go into work, I'm kind of down, and then luckily I'm surrounded by people that are optimistic and reminding me that we have to fix this thing. We, like, not pointing fingers at other folks, other institutions. There's a lot of challenges that we face, and we have to be the solution, not just admiring the problem. So I pulled it back, and now let's go. Let's get to work.
But I think it's
incredible that this goes on here, and all kinds of issues surrounding it. I'm huge on how do we allow these automatic weapons to get in the hands of anybody in this country. Just it's inconceivable to me that we would allow that. Not that that's the only issue that we have to deal with. Just that one really bugs me.
Yeah, it's a new level of evil, I think, if you can construct it. I mean,
I don't know, Newtown was pretty ugly, and we didn't change our laws and put common sense practices in around access to automatic weapons then. And so now this is a new level of evil. I mean, how many new levels of evil do we have to get to before we do something about it?
We certainly need a new level of innovation related to how to combat this. Let's
with citizens at the center.
Let's jump over to a little brighter subject.
Good.
Anything's a brighter subject. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon.
Okay.
I don't get a sense that Rhode Island is, other than going through the motions, really competing in any way, shape, or form to say to Amazon and Jeff Bezos, come to Rhode Island. It seems a little more of, yes, we need to check off the boxes, and maybe there's a missive up to the folks up in the Commonwealth and say, hey, will you throw a couple lines about us in your application? But we certainly can't get any sense, and virtually no information. And in comparison to the cities that seem to want to attract Amazon, they're both publicly and privately moving at a ferocious rate. Is that a good decision not to compete for Amazon? Are we just not? Is that not a realistic thing? So why compete?
Well, first of all, I think we will compete for Amazon. I think we will make a strong pitch for this. I think we did learn, since you and I talked last, that this group of CEOs that have organized and have even put some resources on the table, I view it as a very positive sign, frankly, because one of the biggest challenges we have is what do the leaders, particularly the few large corporations we have here, what do the leaders say when their friends call them behind the scenes about should we consider Rhode Island?
Right.
And I've always thought for a long time that in public they say one thing, and then in private, are they really there? Are they in the tent? Are they helping us pitch and sell this thing? And so I'm really glad to see that group form. I hope that group is really vocal, and the folks that follow them and connect to them aren't just giving lip service to, we have to work together to pitch our state. We have to take our strengths and we have to position them. And so for me, the Amazon opportunity is a really good opportunity for us to model the way we want to go after these things. And we should go after it for real, just not. And so I think they are. I know you're a little frustrated with the transparency of that, and I understand that, but I do think that they're going to go after it. My point of view is that it would be much stronger if we connected to a regional play, and we can talk a little bit more about that, but I don't think that they've decided not to go after it. I think they are.
On Friday, one of the top executives at, I don't know if you saw it, at Amazon, top 3 or 4 in the corporate offices, said he thought Boston was the best place for Amazon to locate. Listen, if it goes to,
It's good news for us.
that is good news for us. But could it also be the worst of both worlds? And I'll tell you why. First of all, a lot of talented people get recruited up there.
Yep.
Housing prices go through the roof.
Right.
But yeah, we'll get some ancillary businesses here that support and supply and pivot off. But is that really the long-term strategy of Rhode Island, is to be the suburb to Boston? And does that create wealth, jobs, employment, or you're just tied to the Boston economy?
Well, I think it's a both and. I think we're part of a regional economy. We are, whether we want to or not,
Right.
regardless of what the political boundaries are or aren't. And so we should be far more proactive about how we play as part of a regional economy. This is a good example. If Boston is in fact one of the lead candidates for this, I think that's good news for Rhode Island. Why? Because the strategic reason that Amazon would locate in the Northeast, it's certainly not because we have a growing population, right? It's because we're a center for innovation and entrepreneurship, and the buyer value here. We got to come back and think about, what is Amazon trying to do, right? And what I believe Amazon is trying to do is expand their strategic footprint, not just their geographic footprint, but where are they going to tap into the labor pools that they need to tap into, and where are they going to be best positioned around what's next? Because that's Amazon's positioning. They're driving change, and Boston is very well positioned around new technologies and innovation, and it also represents another political extended footprint, to add more geography to that. They should be thinking about all of New England, not just Boston. We should be thinking about how we stitch into it. But one last thing I'll say is it's a both and. We should be doing that, and we should figure out what's unique about how we play in the region. What do we offer that the other places in the region, including Boston, aren't able to offer, which is where I go down the path of let's leverage our small size as a unique place for innovation at scale. How could we help Jeff Bezos create the safe conditions to explore what's next? New ways to serve their customers, new business models, new practices that they develop here, and then they are off to the races nationally, and globally. We can do that in a way that's harder to do up in Boston. And we should be organizing around that, putting policies in place, putting practices and programs in place around that. And that's what we can do that's unique, that allows us to do both stitch into the regional economy around innovation and entrepreneurship, and develop a unique positioning that is Rhode Island, where that will play to our unique characteristics.
But come back to my concern, and listen, regional economies are regional economies. Connecticut's supposed to be part of the New York regional economy, and Connecticut has gotten wiped out. New York City is booming, right? They lost GE, they just lost Alexion out of New Haven. They've created a situation because of their tax structure and their cost structure that they're no longer competitive, and companies are saying, listen, I'm not getting the bang for my buck in Connecticut. They're making rational decisions.
Right.
2 major employers packed up and went to Boston. Do we run the risk? We already have one of the most unaffordable real estate markets for the incomes that folks earn here. East Side market, the more affluent middle class areas, the real estate markets are just on fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's no supply. Costs,
That's right.
prices going up 15, 20% by quarter. Do we run the risk, though, of just, listen, we're de facto become a bedroom community. If they're getting 50, 60, 70,000 jobs up in Boston, okay, we get 10,000 of them living here, but all it's done is drive up prices for folks who live here.
Well, we have to do a lot more than just be the place that people want to live, although it's a good thing that people want to
Yep,
live here.
right, that's not a bad side.
That's a good thing, but we have to be so much more than that. people have to want to work here. We have to take our unique conditions and create new work and new higher wage job opportunities, right, that reflect the advantages that we have down here. So I would never say we want to just give up, and say, great, we'll get the spillover, from Boston. I would want us to be a lot more strategic about what does it mean to be part of this regional economy?
Mm-hmm.
What unique advantages do we bring? And how do we play those cards, right? Well, not thinking that we're playing the same game as Boston, we're playing a different game, but it's a good thing when Boston succeeds. There's flat population growth across all of New England.
Right. It's an old...
And the fact that there's strength in Boston,
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back to the western part of Massachusetts where I grew up,
Yeah.
in Springfield, and the Massachusetts Miracle didn't make it there.
You get a casino coming.
Right. Well, you think that's going to change the economy? I mean, we've had that conversation here in Rhode Island.
Right.
Right? That might pay some bills for a short while in transition, but it's not going to drive the economy. It's not going to drive the kinds of jobs that we want. And the same thing's true in Massachusetts when you get outside of Boston. Same thing's true in Connecticut. Is that really one economy? I mean, you have the part of Connecticut that connects to the New York economy. You have the part of Connecticut that connects with us.
Right.
And you have the part of Connecticut that is Western Massachusetts and connected up there. These are economies with different characteristics, and the political boundaries say that it's one economy. It's just not true. That's not how ideas move. It's not how labor moves. It's not how capital moves to opportunity. The good news for Rhode Island is the whole thing's 1,000 square miles,
Right.
if you don't count the bay,
Right.
And we can behave as if we're a single economy, right? And we can be an economy that's good for all of Rhode Islanders, not just parts of Rhode Island.
Today, the governor is marking her 1,000th
Yes,
day
yes.
in office. And we had a couple stories on it, and it was interesting, the comments. I think the governor got some good points on vocational education, on working to expand more opportunities for higher education through her Promise Plan. I think she got some positive marks for at least trying to bring in some companies from out of state. With corresponding questions, are they too expensive?
Right.
Will they work in the long run?
Right.
The next hiccup, what's the first thing people close? Those outlying offices and bring everything in, so how stable
Yep.
those jobs are. And part of it, looking at it, reading it, said, and reading a Jeff Bezos quote the other week about, if you have nothing, how do you innovate, right? And you were head of economic development for a period of time, and you had no incentives.
Very little.
But you then were forced to become more innovative. Are we making a mistake? Former Governor Chafee would make it, others make it, that this corporate underwriting to get every job to come here long-term is a failed practice.
Yep.
That we've got to just make this place we should be focusing on making a better place to do business. What are your thoughts?
Well, a lot in that question.
I can layer a couple more into there.
I'll skip the 1,000-day thing. If you want to bring me back to it, we can come back to that. Frankly, I'm most proud of the way she positions us in conversations outside of the state with some leaders. I mean, this is what you want your governor to do. I know we love to complain about it, but I've been traveling around the country talking to a lot of these leaders. And don't you know, when I'm in the room, I want to talk to them about BIF and what we're doing. And what do they want to talk about? Rhode Island and our governor. That is a fantastic thing. I'm proud of that. I mean, when do we have a governor that's as aggressive and as capable of getting into these executive suites to have conversations with people like Jeff Bezos, right? I think that's pretty impressive, and we should want our leaders to do that. But to your question about incentives and the resources we need to do it, the answer to that is more more nuanced. It's not. I know there are people on principle that never want to give out any incentives. You know, I'm not one of them. You need some incentives, but you can't start with incentives. We will never in Rhode Island out-incent anyone. If we think we're going to win the Amazon deal because we have a bigger bucket of incentives, I mean, that's silly. We're never going to win that way. But do you need to have some incentives? If you could get into the hunt strategically, if we can pitch Rhode Island strategically as part of what's next for Amazon and get their attention, where they want us to be at least a component of the solution, right? Then you start to structure and get at, you know, do we have the real estate and access to the physical property that they can get? Do we have some incentives, you know, to stack up against larger states where we probably don't have to win the game on incentives, but we got to get into the game. So yes, we need incentives, but incentives should be the last thing. We should be focused on what's the buyer value, what is Amazon really trying to do strategically.
But
right?
let's go to that. Amazon, you know, today's
Yep.
commodity for companies like Amazon are smart people,
Yep.
right? That's what they want. They want smart people. I mean, geography may or may not matter. There's arguments if Amazon's looking for an East Coast play for strategic reasons. But the biggest thing is they want smart young men and women, talented people. Now, we have an argument, Brown, RISD, PC, URI, Bryant, etc., across the board that produces one of the highest percentages of college students of any state as a percentage of population. Correspondingly, we're third highest in losing them moving out of state at over 70% of our college graduates leave Rhode Island. Boy, oh boy, perfect place. We produce a lot and we can keep them here, a win-win situation. You know, Boston has a greater number, but it's a lot more competitive market for those young folks, and it's a lot more expensive. I mean, almost everything costs a third more in Boston, whether it's talent or real estate or cost of doing business, traffic, time, etc. So is that how we're playing, and are we playing that well enough? I mean, just one last one.
Okay.
We're paying $80,000 a job for Johnson & Johnson. That's a pretty expensive job.
Yeah, so first of all, I agree with you that talent has to be very high, if not top on the list of strategic reasons, you know, for them creating a headquarters outside of their home base, right? And so that's playing strategically. What is the talent pool? What's the commitment to education to keep that pipeline flowing, right? We're going to end up, everyone likes to lament brain drain that people graduate from our colleges and go out of state. Of course they do. They go where the opportunities are. If those opportunities were being created here, more of them on the margin would stay here. That's how you fix that problem. That's an argument for going strong after at least part of the Amazon deal. But you got to get at the structural issues, because it can't just be the folks that are going to Brown and RISD, you know, and live up on the east side. How do we actually create economic opportunity for all Rhode Islanders, which means you got to work on the education system here, and you got to have a compelling story about how we're committed to the talent pipeline and pool. But I don't think that talent is the whole story. I think it's a big part of the story. I will still come back to, it's not just having access to the talent, it's not just having access to the creative class, you know, which all of these large employers want, because we fire pretty well on that. We have some serious work to do. It's how we create the conditions for that talent to help Jeff Bezos and Amazon or any other companies we're trying to recruit get to what's next. What is it about Rhode Island beyond just the talent that enables you to imagine a whole different way to deliver a shopping experience, first to the citizens here in Rhode Island, but then ultimately outside of Rhode Island? You've got to figure out what we can do uniquely, because if you look at just the talent pool, we'll beat a lot of communities on that. We have some advantages, but we'll lose to a lot of communities given our scale and our size.
So let me ask you a question. Is Amazon just too big for Providence, Rhode Island? I mean, in realistic, we have 500,000, just under 500,000 people working in the state of Rhode Island. Is a 50, 60, 70,000 employee company just too powerful, too strong, too, you know, it would literally change everything.
How fast do we have to get there? Over what period of time? If you told me, you know, we had 20 years, to strengthen the pipeline of talent.
I don't think Jeff Bezos is waiting 20 years to
but
open
if you tell me,
HQ2.
if you tell me that their assumption, and I ask this as a legitimate question,
Yeah.
like what's the time frame, to get to 50,000? If you tell me that it has to happen in 2 or 3 years, then I would answer your question of no. That's why we need to be part of the regional play.
I think
right?
it's 3 years.
I don't think we can get there that quickly, and I'd love to have somebody explain to me where 50,000 highly skilled people to fill those roles are going to come from, or how many of them are going to move to the state because the jobs are here,
Right.
and some of them will,
Yeah.
right? How many of them?
Well, and you might
are a
reverse
product-
commute. You might get, 5,000 people out of Boston or 5,000 new graduates out of Boston colleges and universities. But it certainly would transform everything that goes on. The average salary is 110,000. I think the average HHI here is under 60,000.
Yeah. Now,
So
I
it's
add,
gameplay.
take the Amazon piece, which is huge if we would be positioned to get the whole thing. But go back to the GE piece and the Johnson & Johnson piece. These are flywheels, right? All looking for very similar talent, right? All looking for very similar talent. And so has anyone shown you the pipeline of talent here and where it's going to come from that doesn't immediately back into our colleges and universities and then all the way back to K through 12? Right?
Well, it'll be
Like
interesting in 6 months. GE's is only halfway to their number. Johnson
Right.
Johnson's halfway to their number. 6 months they should have been fully staffed up. Well, let's see if
Yeah.
we're there.
I would love to see, I have not seen, actually have someone show me of the people they've hired so far.
Where'd they come from?
Where are they? Where did they come from? How many people are moving here for a job? Which
Yeah.
is great.
Great.
But how many people came from our local workforce? And why can't we be honest with ourselves about, if we're going to compete on a talent pipeline, let's actually compete on it.
Right.
And let's be self-aware and honest about what our strengths are, right? Our relationship with the local colleges and universities, right? And our weaknesses, which I think are the strength, the weaknesses of our K through 12 system. And how do we fix it? And how do we create strong linkages between those two so that we're creating lifelong learners that can feed a 21st century workforce?
Listen, you get 50,000 affluent people to move into your state. You're going to take care of the K through 12 because those parents are going to demand that your schools improve.
Yeah.
I mean, no two ways about it. That'd be the fastest way to ever improve the school
Yeah,
system.
do you really believe that we're going to win the Amazon deal and our pitch is going to be, we'll welcome 50,000 new people to move into our state? Right. I don't even know if that's a serious proposition. Some number of them will.
Right.
I move people at our small scale
Right.
here to work at BIF when I need to. But I also look at local talent, and I'm rooting for local talent, because that's what's going to make our state stronger. Multiply that with a lot of zeros on the end.
Well, I think we lost a lot of talent between 2008 and now. And I think in that 10-year period.
I never look at it as we lost talent. I look at it as we have the flywheel to create talent here, right? That's a big part of the equation, but not the whole equation. And I'm glad we have it. Do you know how many communities would kill
Right.
to have that flywheel? Look at the positive side of that equation. And if we want more of that local talent, that goes to our local colleges, universities from out of town to stay here, let's create more opportunity for them to stay here. Let's get them more rooted in the local community so they want to invest their careers in good high-wage jobs, but that make a difference in our local community. Let's actually work as a unified workforce and economic development system to do it. And you and I both know that we're way too fragmented in those conversations
Absolutely.
today.
Talked a lot about Amazon. Are we positioned for this economy that is racing by us, hopefully with us included, but are we running the risk of not having the desire, the capabilities, the vision as a whole, not just in the executive office or in spotty places, to be able to take advantage of where the economy looks like it is going,
Right.
which is tech-driven, smart-driven, highly motivated companies and workforce, and a speed in which business is moving at, which you can't even believe. 10 years ago, the Fortune 1000 list, 700 of those companies no longer exist,
Yep.
right? 700 of the top 1,000 companies no longer exist.
Yeah.
That's speed.
Yeah, well, I would give us pretty good grades for kind of starting this conversation and starting to align programs to it. I think the Innovation District, I think bringing companies like GE and Johnson & Johnson here, I think the connection is getting tighter with our local colleges and universities. They seem to be more willing to collaborate than they ever have in the past. I think they
Sometimes with a gun to their head.
Well,
but
whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever it takes. But I think that it's better than it was when I first started to catalyze this conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm
Listen, the nursing
proud of
school.
that. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It took Governor Chafee literally holding a gun to Rick and Uri's head and forcing them. But right across the street from the nursing school is Brown University's medical school. I don't think any of us thought that that could be pulled off in 50 years.
Yep.
So I think the state deserves some credit in making
So
that happen.
I do think we're making progress.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it accelerated, and frankly, I would love to see us do a couple of things. I think we've got to get better at this collaboration, where we're working more in concert across the public and private sector with a shared view of where we're going. Innovation and entrepreneurship can't be just a nice thing to do. It has to be central to what we do. And then this is a very big one. We have to be using language and putting programs in place so that all Rhode Islanders feel like that's an economy that they could see themselves in. We're still too much of, this is the knowledge and innovation economy, and that's great if you live up on the east side and you went to Brown. Right? This is the old economy that isn't coming back, and it's all the rest. We got to have a unified vision for a knowledge-based economy, and then we have to map every Rhode Islander. Right, this is why you got to go back to K through 12. People have to feel like we're building an economy that works for them, that gets them into good jobs, that have a future, that have a ladder to get to higher wage jobs if they're willing to do the work and to learn what it takes to do that.
Well, and I'll tell you, that's a little bit of our frustration as a news organization on the lack of transparency. Hard to get people to buy in when nobody's talking to them. And I think that's a critical part of it. And I think tied to that is, if all the money and resources are going to encourage out-of-state companies to come in, local companies get very frustrated and don't think that there are tools in place for them to participate.
Yeah, I also think it's a little too focused. There needs to be a balance. Are we really going to be Boston, where we have pockets of research expertise with startup entrepreneurs that run tech companies here? Yes, we should do that, but I would love to see us balance that with the downstream stuff. Right? We've talked a lot about the disruption in the retail business, right, and what that means for us and the pain that's caused when local retailers go out. Right? Why aren't we building new models for the way we shop, for the way we get educated, for the way healthcare works? Not just new technologies and point solutions, right, but actual new models of the way we solve problems in our communities, so that we can get the double hit of better solutions for Rhode Islanders, which solve pain points that we have, and position us as the place where innovation happens, so that companies and capital come in here to invest in the new jobs. We can get both of those things. We just got to put those two things in the same conversation, right? Whether it's how do we reimagine the DMV, or how do we reimagine the shopping experience, or getting to things that hit closer to home, right? Like how do we create a well-care system, where families can take better care of themselves, right? How do we create an education system with students at the center, where we're not pushing stuff down to them and wondering why they're bored, and they're not engaged in their education. We can do those things here if we take advantage of our small world properties, our size, and if we could learn how to do that and create policies and programs that support it. Guess what? Now you're in Jeff Bezos' office with, we might be small, but we can be a critical part of helping you define what's next and how you innovate. And believe me, that's what Jeff Bezos cares about. In the end, do you need some incentives and do you need real estate? Yeah. But if
listen, wherever they go,
they're not going to make the decision based on that. That's a necessary but not sufficient. The stuff that matters is the future and being strategically positioned for the future. And we have a real shot at doing that.
Listen, everybody, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Business Monday. Our friends at Deepwater Wind, thank you.